for taking the time to join us. We are hopeful that you will find this to be a mutually rewarding time. There are so many sessions to choose from, and we appreciate that you have chosen to patronize this one. Secondly, I would like to register our gratitude to the LEAP for FNSSA Consortium for organizing this Stakeholder Engagement Week. We remember that we had a big kickoff meeting at the FARA Secretariat around the beginning of 2019, where we had a very big participation and engagement of policymakers. Since then, we have had limited interaction as the whole collective of stakeholders in the LEAP for FNSSA. Much of our interactions have been through updates on the implementation. We're therefore glad that we are able to reconnect during this stakeholder engagement week, even though we are doing so virtually. Now, some comments about PAEPARD. Indeed, Monica, you started it off very well. It is something that a partnership that came out in the open after many years of partnership between Africa and Europe. So, like the LEAP for FNSSA, PAEPARD is an African-Europe partnership aimed at harnessing research and innovation to improve food and nutrition security and sustainable agriculture. However, PAEPARD is a smaller partnership comprising only 9 partner organizations, although they were mostly networks of many organizations. On the other hand, LEAP for FNSSA comprises 35 organizations. So LEAP for FNSSA is a much larger partnership, which is a good thing, showing some kind of graduation from a smaller PAEPARD to a bigger LEAP for FNSSA. We therefore expect that despite the difference in size, there are numerous valuable lessons that LEAP for FNSSA and the Research and Innovation Platform for FNSSA stand to learn from the 11 years of PAEPARD, noting that PAEPARD is considered to have been a very hugely successful project. PAEPARD set out to facilitate African European partnerships that are equitable, that are balanced. Equitable and balanced in several dimensions. Equitable and balanced between Africa and Europe, so between the two continents. Equitable and balanced between research and research users. And equitable and balanced between public and private organizations. PAEPARD is considered to have been very successful. Part of the success is credited to 2 funding mechanisms, the Competitive Research Fund and the Incentive Fund. It is also, the success is also partly credited to the FARA communication that was employed by the project. PAEPARD was a very visible program in many places that have a research and innovation slant. You would find PAEPARD represented through publications, through other means of communication. These particular successes, as well as the challenges encountered, offer useful lessons for us in the FNSSA platform. So, to conclude these opening remarks, I wish to affirm that just as we did under PAEPARD, FARA and the other African partners are committed to be actively engaged in the creation and implementation of the Research and Innovation Platform for FNSSA that is currently under construction. I conclude by wishing you a very fruitful session. Thank you very much, and over to you, Jonas.
Hello, Dr. Jonas.
I can't unmute.
You're on now.
Benjamin, please at least let the facilitator's mic on. I will unmute for myself and so that I can call out the people.
Okay.
Jonas, you are unmuted. Please go ahead. Jonas, can you please help us unmute Jonas?
Hello,
Okay.
Dr. Jonas.
Oh,
You are unmuted, please.
yes, but now I'm unmuted now, right now.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Monica and Dr. Agre Agumia for the opening remarks. I'm just going to, I have only 5 minutes to make my presentation, which I'm going to share because I'm not the main speaker today. I prefer those who are in the panel sharing their experience than me. I don't know. Okay, so the topic today is fostering multi-stakeholder engagement for impact in FNSSA, some lessons learned from PAEPARD from 2007 to 2011. Yeah, I'm going to start, I'm focusing on 3 points only. One is the problems that PAEPARD came to address. And 2, it will be about the partnership setup. And lastly, it will be on achievements. So if you can read on this slide, PAEPARD 1, which came before PAEPARD 2, it was there for 18 months, has identified a certain number of problems that you can see on the left of the screen. And PAEPARD 2 came to address those problems. I'm not going to enumerate all these problems and solutions, but just to focus on the 3 last one: research collaboration, no other stakeholder involved, driven by research interests of European partners with African research stakeholders, and dominated by European research organizations. I think these 3 issues, yesterday some questions were posed to Niang when she was making her presentation on Horizon Europe. And PAEPARD was supposed to create inclusive partnerships with non-research stakeholders, meaning farmer organizations, private sector, NGOs, and also to come with a kind of research that is demand-driven from the end users, of course, and also balanced partnerships. The Agre talked about the 3 types of balance we are looking for: a balance between European and African stakeholders, balance between research and non-research, and balance between private and public institutions. Then PAEPARD was set up with this objective of enhanced, more equitable, more demand-driven, mutual beneficial collaboration of Africa and Europe in ARD, with the aim of attaining the MDGs. I have already talked about this kind of equitable partnership. Just to inform you, to let you, just to refresh you that the total amount of funding of PAEPARD was around 14,300 million euro, 14,300,000 euros, and DEVCO was providing 8%, and 20% was coming from partners as own contribution. So having that objective, PAEPARD set up a partnership that was made by European institutions and African organizations, of course, institutions. That's what I'm trying to show. On the left, we have African organizations, PAFO, FANAPAN, and on the right, you have European institutions or organizations. And PAEPARD was having 7 work packages. Each work package, it was led by, when it was led by an African, it was co-led by a European organization. And when it was led by a European organization, it was co-led by an African organization. So it was really a balanced partnership. And that is among factors that contributed to the success of PAEPARD. It was a balanced partnership between Africans and Europe. And when you see, even in terms of management and coordination, this work package was led by FARA and co-led by AgriNatura, both big networks. I'm now going to achievement of PAEPARD. PAEPARD came with what Monica called the user-led process. This one, it came in the second phase of PAEPARD, where farmers' organization established relations with research institute, a kind of dialogue, which was not easy. I think they are going to talk about it, but we managed to establish that relationships, which is still valid today. I think yesterday, the president of PAFO talked about that everlasting relationship between research and farmer organizations due to PAEPARD, and also the capacity building of farmers to go in different organizations and to sit in the board of these regional organizations. The second achievement was this competitive research fund. We realized that without this funding mechanism, we were just talking between us. It was kind of theoretical thinking, but we needed something which was practical to operationalize the partnership between Africa and Europe. We came up with the 2 funding mechanisms, competitive research fund and incentive fund. And the last one is communication and capacity strengthening strategy. I think Agri talked about the communication, which is still going on today. PAEPARD established a communication strategy with different tools that are still used today, and you are still receiving emails on different resources on ARD, different opportunities, events, blogs. All those tools have been much attractive and really attracting the attention of institutions to stay on in this partnership. So those
Jonas,
were the main achievements
3 minutes
of PAEPARD.
above your time. You are coming to 10 minutes now. I couldn't warn you because I was unmuted. I could not communicate. But you've overshot.
I'm done. And I think that this achievement and this process of PAEPARD can also inform the platform that Leap for FNSSA intends to create before it ends. Thank you very much, Madam Moderator.
All right, thank you, Jonas. I'm sorry, I think, Benjamin, let's make this clear. At least when we go for the panel, have the mics of all the panelists to remain open, and the panelists, please unmute yourself if you're not talking. But can you please leave my mic open? Because I'm timing, I need to tell people when their time is almost up, and I don't know how to communicate with you if Thanks. So thank you very much, Jonas, for jogging us through the memory lane to see the things that PAEPARD was able to put on the table. So now we are going to go deeper because Jonas has given us the bird's eye view of the achievements of PAEPARD and where the problem started with and how it was addressed to make sure that there is that balance in the partnership between Europeans and Africans, researchers, public sector, and farmers. And so now we are going to the panel discussion, and this is the most important. Okay, all the other parts are important, but this is one of our important sections in today. And we have 3 gentlemen that have been with PAEPARD from the beginning. And because their achievements are a lot, I'm not going to try to introduce them, but the technical people will help cut and paste their achievements in the chat. So, but I'll just say something little about each one of them. The first one I'll want to introduce is Patrice Sawade. He's the coordinator of Sojourn, an NGO promoting soya bean in Benin. He's also president of the NGO network called Renova in French. He would speak much more about himself, and he will be sharing with us some of the benefits that Africa has benefited from PAEPARD. The next person that we'll hear from is Steve Moshiri, and I'm sure most of you who are on this platform, you know him very well. Steve has been working with the agricultural sector for the last 17 years. He looks younger than someone who's worked for 17 years, but yes, he is. And he has a master's degree in horticulture. He's the current CEO of the East African Farmers Federation, which is hosting this session today. And this federation works in 10 countries in Africa, and he will be sharing with us his experience from the farmer's perspective. And the last person that we have on the panel is Francois. Many of us who have been around this platform, we know him. He used to, okay, PAEPARD is not dead. He used to work with PAEPARD, and he's been around Africa and other regions. Right now, he works with the African Commission's Directorate for International Partnerships, and he's really passionate about food systems. And so we'll be talking a lot about things to do with food safety. He's also worked in Africa in Egypt, but you hear from the horse's mouth when they introduce themselves. So I don't want to take so much time introducing them. You will hear them, and please welcome them to start sharing. We are going to start this panel with a short video. So Farah, can you please put up the short video? After that, Patrice, I'll ask you some questions and you take over. Thank you. Can we have the video?
Saklo, a few kilometers from Abome. That morning, the EV of the official project closer, women soybean processors, welcomed the member of the Consortium Soja du Benin and PAEPARD delegation. For the processors, the purpose of the visit was to showcase to their partner the fruit of their collaboration, which included Dadonu and stabilized soy milk. For 3 hours, they proved the mastery of improved soybean processing technology developed together with the members of the Consortium Soja du Benin. Soy milk production begins with sorting and washing of soybeans.
Pour la réalisation de notre lait, nous essayons d'enlever les déchets dans les grains. Après avoir enlevé les déchets, nous prenons la quantité, la mesure. Si c'est 10 kg, on prend 10 kg. Nous écrasons les 10 kg dans notre moulin. On essaie de diviser ça par 2 pour que la peau puisse s'enlever. Après avoir enlevé, nous trempons ça dans l'eau.
The seeds are soaked for about 12 hours to facilitate the hulling and milling. Processors add water to the dough. Mix and filter the mixture to obtain juice or raw soy milk. The juice is boiled. At the boiling stage, lemongrass leaves are added to the juice for aromatization. At the same time, processors sterilize the bottles that will contain the milk and the capsules. A few minutes later, the milk is boiled. Bottled. But the processors will take one last precaution: subject the bottles and the content to pasteurization in its sterilizer. After this treatment, the milk can be stored for 6 months at room temperature. The visitors could finally taste the long-awaited milk.
J'ai pu tester le lait de soja, stérilisé, stabilisé, aromatisé. J'étais intéressé parce que c'était appétissant, c'est assez encourageant.
Thank you very much for that video. And now, Patrice, as you build on the story of that video, can you please shed some light on what factors in the partnerships with PAEPARD were enabling for you as a private sector actor, and those that were challenging? Unmute. Please, can you unmute Sawade? You are muted. Okay.
Hello, Patrice.
Yeah, Patrice, we couldn't hear anything.
Allô, c'est bon? Ça passe?
We
Okay.
still can't hear you.
Ah, I'm from Benin. Good morning, Madame Monica. Madame Monica,
Patrice,
merci
nothing
pour
is
ce
coming
panel,
through.
merci pour les discussions que j'ai bien suivies. Merci pour, Jonas, la présentation de PAEPARD. Mon nom, c'est Patrice Sewade. Je suis coordonnateur de Sojanion.
Patrice, we can't hear. We cannot hear anything.
Je suis Patrice Sewade. Non.
We can hear. Monica, we can hear.
Hello,
Wait,
yeah, Monica.
wait.
Benjamin,
Yes.
can
He's
you
speaking
help
French,
us?
so you need to
Because
select
we can't
the
hear
language.
Patrice.
Hello, Madam Monica. Kindly go to interpretation and select English because he's speaking French.
Can anybody, if some other people are hearing Patrice, can you just put up your hand because you can
Yes.
hear him?
Yes.
Yes.
Can
Can you
hear.
hear him?
Yes.
Oh, I
Oui.
can't.
Ah,
Okay,
bon.
go ahead if others can hear you, but I cannot. I've tried.
No, it's not that. Please select the language.
OK, merci
Because
beaucoup.
he switched to French, you need to
Okay,
select.
now I can hear him.
Yeah.
OK. Merci, Madame Monica. J'espère que tu es bien revenue. Mon nom, c'est Patrice Sewade. Je suis coordonnateur de Sojanion. Sojanion est une organisation du secteur privé qui travaille depuis une dizaine d'années sur les chaînes des valeurs du soja au Bénin et en Afrique de l'Ouest. Nous étions tous en train de rechercher des solutions aux problèmes des parties prenantes, des transformatrices et des producteurs du soja quand nous avons découvert un appel de PAEPARD qui voulait que les acteurs, multi-acteurs, chercheurs, et institutions de recherche, secteur privé, et ONG et OPA se mettent ensemble pour relever les défis, pour lever les contraintes qui se posent au secteur d'activité dans lequel ils sont. Et Sojanion a pris le lead de cet appel et a formulé une proposition de projet à PAEPARD pour mettre en place un consortium, donc qui a été dénommé le consortium Soja du Bénin. Ce consortium implique les institutions de recherche comme l'Institut national de recherche du Bénin, INRAB, et l'Université d'Amérique-Calavi, donc la faculté des sciences agronomiques, et les organisations des producteurs agricoles, notamment la FUPRO Bénin, et les institutions, à mobiliser des institutions internationales de recherche, notamment l'Université de Wageningen aux Pays-Bas et l'Institut d'agriculture tropicale du Portugal, ISA Lisboa. Et dans ce consortium, nous avons pu élaborer ce projet qui permet de répondre à la préoccupation des transformatrices, qui est qu'ils avaient un lait qui ne se gardait pas longtemps et qui ne durait que quelques 6 heures de temps. Et pour devenir périmé ou caillé, où on n'arrive plus à survivre dans le temps. Ça faisait des pertes pour eux. Et nous avons aussi découvert que les transformatrices avaient des problèmes pour accepter et mettre sur le marché un autre produit qui est appelé localement aphytine, et accepter de vendre le aphytine là comme un produit dérivé du soja. Donc, il faisait un peu de la tricherie sur le nom. Et lorsque la recherche universitaire, la recherche agronomique avec les producteurs, nous sommes mis ensemble, nous avons décidé de corriger les dysfonctionnements qui sont dans le processus de transformation de ces femmes et de révéler le potentiel que le soja a à ne plus le cacher comme un ingrédient utilisé dans les produits alimentaires. Et c'est ça qui nous a amené à mettre au point avec ces institutions le lait stabilisé du soja, où on peut avoir le lait qui a une durée de vie de plus d'1 an, de plus de 12 mois. On est parti d'abord de 0 mois à 6 mois et aujourd'hui, la recherche s'est poursuivie et nous avons le lait stabilisé qui peut être gardé pendant 6 mois. Nous avons pu mettre au point une autre technologie qui était la contrainte des utilisateurs comme les transformatrices, c'est le dadonou de soja qui est aujourd'hui un exhausteur de goût et bien utilisé et bien consommé par les populations. Donc, cette transformation, elle est mise au point par les femmes avec l'appui de la recherche. Et ça, c'est le financement reçu de PAEPARD à travers les fonds compétitifs de recherche. Ces fonds compétitifs nous ont permis de lever ces contraintes et de faire des publications, de former des étudiants, de former au moins 5 masters sur ces innovations et de faire plusieurs publications scientifiques. Et cela nous a amené à faire beaucoup de déplacements et à faire déplacer les transformatrices, les utilisateurs, pour aller faire des expositions au niveau international, même à présenter les dérivés de ce produit-là à la Journée européenne de développement il y a 3 ans et à présenter à la semaine, au Salon international de l'Afrique de l'Ouest qui se tient au Sahara en Côte d'Ivoire. Ces résultats ont amené l'association Sojanion et son secteur privé qui est derrière à apporter une solution non seulement aux transformatrices, mais au secteur privé et à l'économie locale. Aujourd'hui, ces femmes Ces braves femmes font de grandes productions qui livrent sur les différents marchés, livrent dans les cantines scolaires pour permettre aux enfants qui sont en situation alimentaire de l'école de consommer des produits dérivés du soja et de fortifier leur état nutritionnel avec les protéines du soja, les protéines à base du soja. C'est un grand défi que nous avons pu relever avec PAEPARD. Et nous ne pourrons jamais cesser de dire merci à PAEPARD et à tous ses partenaires qui ont mis à notre disposition le potentiel de collaboration, le potentiel de résultat que nous allons continuer par vendre pendant toute notre durée de vie. Merci.
All right, thank you very much. You've answered the question that I wanted to ask next, but let me ask Steve, do you have a question for Patrice?
Yes, thank you, Monica, for this session. I think I'll be very quick. Patrice, and thank you for the presentation. What kind of research is needed to link production to consumer needs based on your experience? Thank you.
Merci, Steve. Oui, il s'agit de l'intérêt et des besoins du consommateur dans la transition d'un modèle agroalimentaire. La recherche ne peut que se faire sur la base de la demande. Et la demande, c'est le besoin des consommateurs. Et je pense que c'est l'une des voies de transition qui se dégage actuellement et qui est celle des systèmes alimentaires territorialisés. Et si nous parlons de cette territorialisation et ce modèle, c'est d'inviter la recherche à relocaliser et à repositionner son approche, et au moins partiellement par rapport à l'implication des politiques et par rapport aux besoins des utilisateurs, par rapport à la demande des communautés. La recherche doit pouvoir suivre le besoin final du consommateur pour positionner ces éléments de recherche. Par exemple, en Afrique de l'Ouest et dans nos pays, il y a des produits locaux, des produits, je suis dans le domaine de l'agroalimentaire, des produits agroalimentaires qui n'ont pas, qui sont des pratiques traditionnelles, qui sont des mets locaux et qui n'ont jamais été visités par la science et qui sont des pratiques de plusieurs dizaines d'années de nos parents. Mais il faut que la recherche visite ces pratiques-là et faire un diagnostic de fonctionnement de ces productions et apporte des solutions scientifiques qui garantissent aux consommateurs un produit, la consommation d'un produit de qualité ou la mise en vente d'un produit de qualité afin que nos produits locaux au niveau Afrique puissent être positionnés dans des grands marchés ou même acceptés par les consommateurs avec joie. Avec joie, nous avons de très bons produits alimentaires ici.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. A comment in the chat from Dr. Mizarak that the Belgian Co & Co microbreweries were very much interested in converting the Atsano soya milk brewery from you with the semi-industrial brewery unit for beer to adapt it to soya. So yeah, it's in the chat and there is a link to that. There are some comment. There is another comment in French. I'll ask someone to read it for me. Francois, we have 2 minutes left for you and Patrice. Do you have a question for him?
Yeah, actually, when you listened yesterday, high-level opening of the whole week, but also the presentation by Sadrach Muefuli on the report which the Leap for FNSSA made on basically trying to screen the funding opportunities, what was revealed is again what was already discussed 10 years ago, which is, for instance, that the majority of funding goes to issues related to production or to diminishing loss, pests, diseases, etc. My question to you, Patrice, would be, is there not a need now to move to another stage whereby funding for processing and packaging food, especially based on African ingredients, would be the next approach? Because funding for processing what I would call the African food heritage is definitely needed and not enough. That is my question, Patrice. J'aurais dû le poser en français. Hein?
Okay. So Patrice, you have 1 minute to answer that question.
OK, merci beaucoup. Les besoins de la recherche sont énormes et beaucoup plus deviennent plus des exigences au niveau africain pour le secteur agro-industriel. Le secteur agro-industriel de chez nous est mal pensé, est mal perçu. Ils sont perçus comme des gens qui ont des moyens, qui savent déjà faire parce qu'ils ont des équipements ou des aliments, des produits alimentaires sortent. Ce n'est pas toujours vrai. C'est pas toujours vrai. C'est vrai, il y a des entreprises de haute technologie qui sont là et ce sont des délocalisations des entreprises de l'Europe vers notre pays, vers nos pays de l'Afrique. Mais aujourd'hui, le besoin est beaucoup plus important pour que la recherche au niveau international puisse se pencher sur les aspects technologiques des entreprises africaines. Il ne s'agit pas simplement que les produits africains puissent être convoyés en grande quantité vers les pays industrialisés de l'Europe, mais il faut que la recherche internationale puisse travailler à mettre en relation le partenariat Europe et l'Afrique sur l'amélioration et la mise à niveau des technologies de transformation pour garantir aux Africains un produit de qualité, un produit transformé de qualité et une consommation de produits de qualité, afin que ces produits transformés puissent aussi accéder au marché de l'Europe, puisque nous avons besoin d'apporter de la valeur ajoutée aux produits africains. Donc, le besoin existe, et le besoin existe au niveau de technologie, au niveau des normes, au niveau de processus et au niveau de mise à marché. Je parle de transport, je parle de la logistique. Le besoin de la recherche est là et le partenariat est souhaité pour les entreprises africaines, surtout celles qui sont dans l'agroalimentaire. Merci. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patrice. I have an announcement, just a notice from the interpreters. If you are like me, that you were lost at the beginning, just look at the bar at the bottom of the screen. There is a global icon there. Click on it and choose your language so that if you are French or English, you'll go for the language that you prefer. And thank you very much, Patrice, for those exciting updates for us, for some of us who have been far away from PAEPARD. So we know this project is still going on, so PAEPARD is still alive. Now, let's move on to the next panelist, and it's Steve. Steve, you're welcome. You will just say something little about yourself, in case people have forgotten who you are. And then you share a little about your story as a president of the Farmers Federation. But also we want to learn from you what the most important benefits of PAEPARD were for the farmers organizations and the most difficult issues you addressed as a partner.
Yeah, so thank you. My name is Stephen Mushiri. I'm the Chief Executive Officer, Eastern Africa Farmers Federation, which is a regional organization comprising of national farmer federations and national cooperative alliances in 10 countries around Eastern Africa. We have members at small-scale farmers and there are about 20 million of them. So very quickly around the PAEPARD project, I think for us as a federation, we found many benefits, engaging in PAEPARD, and I'll list some of them. One of them is the issue of information asymmetry. You realize that information sources for opportunities for funding is actually very skewed. And for us as an association, we were not able to always identify, all the sources, find these opportunities and hence try to access them. So through PAEPARD, we were able to consolidate or were able to converge or have those sources converged to the extent that we're able to actually access them and take action. The second thing was capacity, which again was a challenge. You realize that a lot of these funding opportunities are very competitive, and some of them require a certain level of capacity. And most times than not, we fell short of them. And during PAEPARD, one of the things that we did was to intervene around skilling or building skills to be able to, write proposals that are actually fundable or actually attractive. And this has been actually helpful for us as it has impacted our ability to do so then and even up to now. The other issue that was around partnerships. You realize again, a lot of these calls required that you have, partnerships either within Africa or across the continent. And sometimes it was a challenge to identify the right institutions, the right people, to know the capacities that these institutions actually had. And one of the things that we did in PAEPARD was to profile some of these institutions to understand what they do, identify some of the contact persons there, and hence this actually helped a lot in terms of forming consortiums around potential funding. And I can say that since then, we've been able to do between 7 and 10, such kind of consortiums, and we're actually grateful to PAEPARD. The other issue was around the target of calls. We realized that there was a bit of skewness in terms of how calls were targeting, or what they were targeting. For example, there are more calls on crops than, for example, livestock. And I remember one of the things that we did was to have a joint lobby to try and see whether we could actually have or influence, how these calls are designed, what kind of priorities they actually look out for. And I think in one way or another, directly or indirectly, we've been having some of these areas that are not usually funded, getting some funding. We actually have in 2 projects, one on animal feed that is not a regular call, and another one on aflatoxin that we are working on and we're actually implementing and rolling out. So I think in short, in terms of benefits, I think there were many tangible as well as non-tangible benefits that we were able to benefit from the PAEPARD process. The partnerships that I mentioned were actually very significant. Those of you in the know, the PAEPARD had what you called an innovative fund, which we were able to actually target even smaller farm organizations competitively to be able to access these innovative funds. And I think the first presenter was actually a beneficiary of that. Of course, there's a lot of learning, especially on how development partners design and roll out projects, which I think for us was very instrumental. We're able to look at, for example, how the funding landscape has actually been mutating, from many bilaterals to very highly competitive projects, to consortiums, to private sector focus. So all these you're able to be in the know. Of course, I talked about capacity, and I think the most important is that PAEPARD is still, PAEPARD is a brand. We actually build a brand, Even as we speak, is still very active and very alive. There are thousands of people still participating in it. I know even us as EAFF, we even post some of the opportunities that we are looking for consultants on the PAEPARD platform. And I think it's been an honor to actually be part of this PAEPARD fund. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think you can clap for actually we forgot to clap for Patrice. You can clap for Patrice and for Stephen for putting together a package of their experience for us to benefit from. Now, before I forget, let me just pick some things from the chat. Remy Kaheni says there has been an impact assessment just at the end of the project. What is not the best to cover all kinds of impacts? The report is available. Yeah, so there is that impact report. You can get it. And then from Myra, this is an important question. As you have been in PAEPARD from 2007 to 10, and an extensive evaluation was made. Yeah, so they're also referring to that extensive evaluation. So that we have reference where we can go to get more details on the benefits of what PAEPARD has done. All right. In the interest of time, let me ask Francois, do you have a question for Stephen?
Yeah, for sure. Stephen, you remember 10 years ago, we had a fight. I remember a very critical meeting back in 2010, not to name anybody, but Marek Poznański, who was responsible for the NGO CSA based in Brussels, was as a very vocal person on the interests of the farm organizations. And there was almost a breakdown whereby he said, we will not engage ourselves in PAEPARD if we do not have a different mode of operation, which finally became the users-led process. Now, looking 10 years later, I think PAFO, EAFF, ROPA, SACAO have gained enormous credibility and are being asked now more and more from the academic world, please engage with us, not only for executing projects, but to conceptualize projects. Could you give some examples?
Francois. Yeah, so the ULP process is what we call the user-led process, and it's a new conceptual way of thinking. And the thinking around is that research needs to be demand-driven to the extent that researchers and non-research actors need to identify the problems together so that they're able to find solutions that are practical, scalable, and most important, because we are private sector, you know, there's a cost, some kind of a cost-benefit analysis to ensure that whatever we are developing is affordable and can actually be picked up by the private sector. I think there are many examples that you can actually give where we've actually been able to lead a process. For example, we've been having a project on the goat value chain where we were able to, you know, based on a challenge in one of the member countries in Djibouti, where they have a challenge of climate change, and we had been able to influence or give input to the agro-pastoral policy there. We were able to participate in a goat value chain project where we exported dairy goats to Djibouti, and these dairy goats have now matured. We've been a breeding program that has been led by us and the members, and because of that, there has been support by the government of Djibouti, support by FAO, support by IFAD, support by a lot of other NGOs in Djibouti. And it's actually been very successful. We started off with about 4 trips or 45 goats each. And now these have actually multiplied, and we have, you know, about 2,000 of those. And the impact of that, mitigating climate change, because it's easier to lose a cow than a goat. Two, you know, nutritional aspects. You know, the goat milk has, you know, a lot of nutrients and so forth. So that is one. We are part of a project called BioAfrica, which is on animal feeds. Again, a challenge in this region because of climate change. We have problems of quantity and quality of animal feed. And we're actually participating in this project with other institutions like AATF and SHIRAD, where we're actually looking at conversion of a lot of fodder crops, trees, and so forth, to be converted into animal feed. We're engaging private sector. The project has actually just started, but this again is a response to a challenge that we feel that has been problematic in this region. We have a project on aflatoxin. Again, this is coming from an area we identified as a priority for EAFF. And we've been working with the Max Rubda Institute, which is based in Germany, as well as CARLO. This is the National Research Institute in Kenya. And we've been trying to look at one traditional ways that you know, people were able to manage aflatoxin. We've also been working on some of the mitigations that as a result of research by CARLO as well as the Max Rubda Institute that can actually be applied in this part of the world. And we have a lot of results so far. The project is still ongoing, but you can see again it's a challenge that we raised as an issue for us, and we're actually trying to address it. And then we have the e-granary platform, which is an e-platform, which is actually meant to aggregate farmers to access, you know, certified inputs, reliable markets. And in fact, one of the inputs we are helping farmers access is AflaSafe, which helps manage aflatoxin. And because of this, you know, innovation, we've been able to attract a lot of private sector partners, large input companies, insurance companies, banks, off-takers, and we've been able now to move the project from Kenya, where we started, and it's in Uganda, and we're just starting off in Rwanda. So I think there are many examples we can actually give that we can lay impetus to the PAEPARD project, where, you know, PAEPARD was focusing on, you know, creating partnership opportunities, but most importantly, showing value to the partners that they can actually create or generate value as a result of joining your partnership or as a result of joining your consortium. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Patrice, your question has less than 1 minute to be answered, so make it precise to the point, and Steve will respond. Either we've lost Patrice. Let me read again some of the comments. Hi, everyone. So there is Revocatus Mario. We are a youth cooperative promoting youth involvement in agriculture and support in agroforest value chain. Okay, so that one was introducing themselves. We have a lot of links that are being posted. Please check them and you get more information. So, so that was the time going off. Thank you very much, Steve, for your sharing. We've, for me, hearing that actually the farmer-led, the user-led initiative that started with PAEPARD has not only taken root, but it is now taking you places. It's really a blessing. So I'm sure we'll be hearing much more of that from the links that are being given to us. So please check those links and get some more input. Now we are moving on to the last person on the panel, Francois. I'll ask you a general question because I know you have so many answers and you have so many questions. So I'll just ask you to share from the European perspective, what are your memorable moments of PAEPARD? Take it off.
That's a tough question. I would rather focus on what we have tried to do with donors, because it has not been easy always to match what we were coming up with, which was a different type of research, basically research coming from the private sector, African agri micro SMEs, and from farm organizations. So what I found memorable, and it has been touched by Stephen, is to create capacity among the farm organizations to translate a development question into a research question, which could be understood by researchers. Because definitely researchers and the farm organizations and the private sector, they are speaking totally different voices and they are coming from total different perspectives. So when you see the funding opportunities have been many, but I recall yesterday, Yemi Akinbamijo, the executive director of FARA, started the high-level kickstart saying that if you want to dress me, you need to take my measurements. And this metaphor is quite right, because it is useless to set up funding schemes which do not fit the needs. And over the past 10 years, we definitely have seen a move from funding schemes which were very much oriented towards agricultural tropical departments towards a need for research which is better matching the needs for the farm organizations and for the agri SMEs. At one point, and I find it somehow memorable, I met the commissioner in Utrecht in the Netherlands, the commissioner, Madame Josefa Sacco of the African Union, and I did interview her. So the interview, and I just put it now on the chat box where you can watch the YouTube interview, was interesting because what we asked her basically was, how can we reprioritize research which would fit much more the needs of the private sector? And even from the European Commission perspective, this is now, it's about what we call people, planet, and prosperity. And when we think about prosperity, then we talk about creating jobs. Now, reconciling those three big elements, satisfying people's needs, which are health, satisfying the planet, environmental needs, sustainability, and satisfying prosperity, which is creating jobs, basically, income generation, it's not easy to reconcile. Another thing I want to pass on for the Leap for FNSSA, as we are working and having this session in their organized week, is that there is a report which somehow was missed out in the report which was published by Leap for FNSSA in the month of December, which was a report which was commissioned by DEFCO. I will put it in the chat shortly. And basically, it was a report which was making an evaluation of the support of the Directorate General of Development Cooperation to research and innovation in Africa. Of course, it covered a period 2007, 2012. So this report had conclusions which are still so much valid. I have the impression that we are somehow repeating the story. If you want to check the main recommendations, I have just now put on the chat a link. And there you will see, for example, where they say that very little effort was made to capitalize on research results and make them known and available to the wider audience. DEFCO has rarely felt able to deploy support to national innovation systems. There is little strategy thinking among the European Commission to support the different phases of innovation and impact pathways. And we can go on more further and further. What I'm seeing today is a different approach indeed, but the synergy between DG Research, DG Agriculture, and the Directorate General International Partnership is a continuous work, and this definitely has to be improved. What came out, for example, of the report is that it is rare to find in the different delegations in the African countries, and I'm sure you all know where this European Union delegation is based. It's often perceived as an embassy which you cannot approach or where you cannot enter in. But basically, the European Commission is now under the new program, which is called DESIRA, which has like 60 projects. Learning from the past, DEFCO has tried now to involve far more the European Commission delegations, to involve them to what is being funded at a national level in research. And my last point, and something I already discussed with Agrinatura, is to say that you have something like CADEP. CADEP is well known, but CADEP is producing now the biannual reports. And the Americans, USAID, has been helping the CADEP national coordinators to basically map, but also visualize progress. Now, I think that when I see Leap for FNSSA as a consortium, it's a consortium of a club of donors, basically. And this is, of course, you have some African donors, but here we talk about a club of donor administrators, which is quite different from the PAEPARD setup, because the PAEPARD, we were the ones selecting the projects. When I say we, it was a group of representatives from farm organizations, from the private sector, not to mention Colia CP, based in Brussels and Paris, representing the private sector of importing fruits and vegetables from the ACP region. And you had then on the African side, researchers, farm organizations, and they were all together, which was not an easy task, but we have first identified agricultural innovation facilitators, which were to facilitate consortia. And again, this is lost today. We do not have this preparatory phase whereby a consortium, which is not yet, between brackets, mature to submit a research proposal, are preparing themselves, coming together with a facilitator, a broker, bringing together farm organization, private sector, research, policymaker, Europe and Africa, bringing them together to exactly do this, translate a development problem into a research question. This is what we call increase the core preparedness. And today, such type of facility, which was covered under the incentives fund, is no more there. It is directly, basically, and I even would say the usual suspects who are well prepared, they do among themselves prepare for the proposal, and then when the call comes up, they will submit it. But we had a specific facility. So this is some recommendations toward the Leap for FNSSA consortia. So on the one hand, take into account this report, which was published in 2016. You will find the reference and the link. And then make sure that also some assets which we had as PAEPARD, like this incentives fund, making sure we have the opportunity to create new consortia, that this is given a possibility. And the last word would be, sometimes I wonder whether donors are really willing to support innovation, because the donor practice is, we need reliable consortia. We find it difficult to go into a risky business, while we know very well that genuine innovation means risk-taking. You cannot predict where you will land. And luckily, we had some very good examples, like the one of Patrice Sewade, where we had the opportunity to indeed go very well beyond what we expected. And at one point, and again, a limitation for PAEPARD, the funding did not allow for equipment purchase. And this is regrettable because at one point, Patrice Sewade, with his artisanal soya consortium, wanted to move from artisanal to industrial. And I remember very well, some years ago, we had a very nice visit in a private company. It's also mentioned in the chat, where we realized that a Belgian beer brewery machinery producer could fit very well with his machineries to the Benin consortium needs of processing high quantity soya beans into soya milk in a semi-industrial fashion. But at the end, PAEPARD and FARA said, we cannot fund this type of investment, which is regrettable because this would have been the next phase. So these were my highlights for those 10 years of PAEPARD, and I'm sure it will lead to comments.
All right, thank you. We now have actually coming to 5 minutes left. So I don't have questions in the chat. What I have are links and comments, and there were some general questions. Let me see. Okay, was this one to Francois? All right, there is this question, a comment. Is the research work specific for some value chain? Can propose areas for research based on the gap we identify and how we can admit such needs? Thanks. I think these ones came from Francois himself. So you will answer that one when you answer Steve's question. Steve, do you have a question for Francois?
Yes, I have a question for Francois. During the PAEPARD process, and when we were trying to identify potential stakeholders, and the idea was to mirror the ones in Africa to the ones in Europe. I think we had a big challenge trying to mobilize the European Union farmers to come on board. So maybe the question would be, why would such a, in your view, was it that there was a challenge for them participating in multi-stakeholder platforms? Because even in the funding later on, we didn't see any of them participating on the calls and so on. Maybe you can give us some kind of a response.
Yeah, well, I think we had one opportunity where we did invite the AgriCorps, which is the consortium basically, or organization in Europe representing farmers. And at that point, they were indeed representing the European farmers. The problem was with PAEPARD that we had a Belgian NGO called CSA not representing European farmers. They were lobbying in the favor of the farmer organizations in the south. So that was an issue. You should also realize that the majority of European farmers are what I would say trapped into the profit-making economic logic, which does not allow them very much possibilities or level to maneuver with interacting with research. Basically, when you are at the end of the month to break even and make sure that you survive as a farmer in Europe, you cannot take too many risky adventures taking up with research to change things. Agroecology, for example, is now with the Green Deal in Europe a high priority. But you have to understand that to convert as a farmer from a traditional farming system using pesticides, etc., fertilizers, to an agroecological approach, you need at least a period of 5 years of transition. And during this period, where will this farmer who is going to create a niche product, bio products, where is he going to get his revenue? In addition, why did PAEPARD not engage much with European farmers? you have language problems. The majority of European farmers speak national languages, do not speak English or French. He may speak Finnish, he may speak Danish, he may speak German, he may speak Scottish. So he's not at all versed into this international arena of international agricultural research. So of course, then he is disconnecting as well. And I think even for FNSSA, trying to involve the European farmer in consortia is not going to be easy because anyway, he has never been to Africa. AgriCorps has such an exchange program, and the European farmers who received the budget to travel to Africa were very excited about this experience. The next step would be beyond farmers collaborating with one another is try to see how European farmers, African farmers together can attract a researcher to prioritize their research priorities. And by the way, DEFCO, called INTPA now, International Partnerships, is now finalizing with PAFO a proposal on farmer-led research, of which East African Farming Forum is part, as you know.
Thank you, Francois. You've saved only 20 seconds, so I'll take them up because we are running short of time. Thank you very much, our panelists. Let me see if there is a comment or a question in the chat. Okay, Sawade had some question. I think you can respond to them in the chat, and we'll try to have a report that will capture most of the key things that are coming out.
Mais je vais répondre quand même brièvement, Monica, parce que la question de Patrice est très pertinente. Il demande en fait est-ce qu'une collaboration entre l'agro-industrie européenne et l'agro-industrie africaine est-il possible? Je vois des initiatives très intéressantes. Je les mettrai dans le chat. Il y a maintenant, par exemple, une organisation qui s'appelle Entrepreneurs pour Entrepreneurs, qui essaye justement de mettre en rapport des entrepreneurs européens qui sont dans la micro-agro-industrie alimentaire de transformation avec des micro-entrepreneurs africains. Donc, il y a certainement des initiatives qui se prennent, mais la majorité des agro-entrepreneurs européens sont assez frileux d'avoir ce type de collaboration. Et comme vous disiez au début, Monica, j'étais basé durant 1 an en Égypte, et le gouvernement égyptien, chaque année, organise un grand, ce qu'ils appellent African Food Manufacturing Fair. C'est une grande foire qui va d'ailleurs se tenir également au mois d'août cette année-ci au Caire. Et c'est une foire où il y a environ 300 stands, majoritairement chinoises, indiennes, brésiliennes et quelques compagnies européennes qui voient ou qui perçoivent le continent africain comme l'opportunité des années à venir, a big money opportunity, parce qu'ils se rendent compte qu'avec l'augmentation de la population citadine dans les villes africaines, il y aura un besoin certain d'une capacité de production, de transformation et de conservation alimentaire. Donc les Chinois, les Indiens, Brésiliens et autres voient le marché africain comme une opportunité pour vendre leurs machines de transformation alimentaire, leurs machines d'emballage de tout produit alimentaire. Et le grand souci est là, c'est qu'au lieu d'aller reconnaître en fait la valeur de ce qui est traditionnellement ce qu'on appelle l'African Food Heritage, d'essayer d'orienter la recherche vers justement les nécessités ou les besoins de recherche dans la transformation alimentaire, c'est de plutôt s'orienter vers ce que l'extérieur a comme seule solution pour une agro-industrie. Et c'est un débat qui n'est certainement pas terminé. En septembre, on aura le United Nations Food System Summit, et c'est un débat qui est très houleux. C'est d'opposer l'agro-industrie envers la petite production et les petites et moyennes entreprises. Donc, les enjeux sont énormes. Merci, Monica, pour le temps. Thank you, Monica.
Merci.
Oh, thank you, Francois. I couldn't resist letting you answer that question. So thank you very much. So, hey, you will agree with me that the three have done a great job of jogging our memories, giving us exciting facts and figures on the ground. Let me just recap. Of course, in between trying to manage time and capturing some things, I'll just recap a bit of what we have heard from the three panelists. We started with Patrice, and he showed us a video and helped us see how, as private sector, they've helped female producers prolong the shelf life of their milk, of their soy milk. And also they've worked with students. They've had exposure that has helped people become more confident. And you could see in the video that those women were really exposed and confident. And then Steve ran us through some of the main achievements by the farmers organization, by farmers from PAEPARD. He talked about use of information, that now they can also write proposals, and the proposals are funded. He talked of so many projects. And then partnerships with institutions, with the research and the other people. He talked about improving targeting. That was a challenge at the beginning. And they were able to actually go for commodities that would normally not be funded, like livestock and aflatoxins, and he talks about those later on. And then a lot of learning. And when he was asked for the examples of these user-led initiatives that are still ongoing and successful, he told us about the goat value chain, where they were able to develop an agro-pastoral policy, and they've improved the goats, they've multiplied them to over 2,000, and there is the Bio-Africa, where they are looking at the quality and quantity of animal products. There's the aflatoxins. By the aflatoxins are real. Hey, our maize was rejected by Kenya because of aflatoxins. So we know it's very real here in Uganda. But this association, they were able to work on that project as well. And they have this initiative of e-granary platform that started in Kenya, in Uganda, now has spread to Rwanda. So yes, that's why for me, that shows that PAEPARD is still alive. And he ended by saying, he said something that I thought was interesting, that PAEPARD to them has become a brand. I think, Steve, if you have some time, you can chat, just put in the chat what you mean by PAEPARD becoming a brand, but that was nice to hear. Then we heard from Francois, and he talked a lot about the challenges that we had with PAEPARD, and the whole question of being able to translate development questions into research questions. It's like farmers are speaking another language, researchers are speaking another language. How do you put them in the same room? And he talked about several things, about priorities by EU research for private and what. He talked about what EU is now dealing with, where there are people, there is the planet, there is prosperity. How would you work with those three in the same room? They seem to be contradictory, but that's actually the reality that we have to work on today. Yeah? They are contradictory, but it's a challenge and we have to work on it. Then he provided so many links. There are reports that we can go to dig into some of those conversations that he's been having. There were questions that were posed. I'm just running through because I want to give time for the next person to tell us about the ERC. So there was a question about farmers, European farmers not engaging. It's very interesting because those same responses are the responses that we have here. Our farmers don't speak English or French. They also speak their native languages. But anyway, that's why we have interpreters. So that one, Francois will shoot that one down. But it's a reality that farmers are actually private sector everywhere, and they're always counting the cost. For them, being in a meeting is not just a 30 minutes meeting, like now we have 2 hours of Zoom. It's really trade-offs. They have a lot of things to do on their farms. So he's saying the same things we experience in Africa here, they're experiencing in Europe. And so the engagement of farmer to farmer has to be well thought out. And he gave us some hope that there are some initiatives that there was an attempt to bring European farmers to meet African farmers, and they were very excited. And then he talked about the challenge of PAEPARD not being able to fund opportunities like for industry, and saying that they hope this new venture will learn from PAEPARD's mistakes and not repeat them. Then he ended with a question, ended by sharing the experience in Egypt that he had. Francois, it's everywhere. Whenever we have farmers show in Africa or wherever, you have the Chinese bring their things, all these people who are well funded and connected, they bring their goods, and some of them are sold much cheaper. And so people keep, taking up these things. Yeah, so that challenge of having Africa process their own products and put them on the market, it's something that, all of us have to think about and think of how to actually put forward Africa's products as competitive in quality and quantity with products from elsewhere. So thank you very much to the panel. I'll clap for you again. And if you found this interesting, please use the reactions and give them a clap. And now, Jonas, I'll call on you to invite our next speaker because you know him better. Jonas.
Okay, thank you, Monica. I think you know Philippe Petit-Guenin.
Yes, I know Philip. Yeah.
Yes. Philippe.
Do you want to introduce or shall I start? Shall I upload my presentation? Is it okay?
Yes, yes, please. Go ahead.
I hope it works. Is it okay? Is it in full screen?
Yeah, yes, now it's in full screen.
Okay, thank you. First, I would like to thank you for inviting me to this session. I must say that I work for CIRAD, and CIRAD has been involved in PAEPARD, and PAEPARD is really a very interesting initiative, and typically it is a brown, because now most people talk about PAEPARD as an example and a lot to be learned from, and I'll come back to this point in my presentation. So very briefly, I want to present to you this proposal to establish a bi-continental platform to support the partnership between Europe and Africa in research and innovation in the domain that is our domain, food and nutrition security and sustainable agriculture. I am coordinating this project lead for FNSSA. I think you've seen these slides. I'll go very briefly through them. The number of partners from both continents. It's also organized in work packages which are co-led by a European and an African institutions. And just coming to this, the objective of Lead for FNSSA, which is facilitating this week, is to establish what we define as a sustainable structure or platform for the efficient and coherent implementation of the EU-EU Research and Innovation Partnership, as described in the roadmap. The words here, which are important, is coherence and efficiency. It's also that the platform which we are proposing to establish has to be sustainable. It goes beyond the timeline of a specific project, and it has to be linked to the FNSSA roadmap. I think maybe some of the people listening today have listened to the official opening yesterday. The FNSSA roadmap was approved by the EU and the AU in 2016 for 10 years. So it's like a target for both unions to work together on research and innovation initiatives which are of interest of both continents. And I insist here, it's a partnership, it's not an aid program. So it's providing knowledge, inputs, opportunities to respond to the expectations for the citizens and the stakeholders from both sides. I may come back to this point because it's linked to what was discussed on European farmers. So what's definitely the platform to be established, it has these three main objectives. One is creating synergies. Now, a lot is happening in research innovation between Europe and Africa in our domain. Small project, big project, large initiatives, programs, a lot is happening, but it needs to be better connected, and there's a lot of opportunity for synergies. The other one is the difficulty for people to sometimes find the right partners and find the right funding and find the right sort of information. I think just before, I think somebody was finishing by saying, well, the whole importance of the connections, being connected, having the right contact is sometimes what is key to success. So what the platform should do should facilitate this access to who is doing what at what time and how I can talk to them, how I can approach them, how I can develop partnership, collaboration with actors, and what are the funding opportunities. And at the end, it's boosting the innovation, showcasing what works and trying to expand it to upscale. And those activities that the platform will put in place, really, they go around those elements, reducing fragmentation, supporting interaction, and improving the coordination. That platform will be launched in 2022. We are working on it, we're building it, and it's very much open to all participants who would like to be part of this design process. And in the first step, it will be organized as an international research consortium. From there, it may evolve as its members will decide. I just wanted to show this graph. Sorry to go a little bit within what is happening in LEAP for FNSSA with work packages, but it's important. Establishing this platform is connected to these three specific objectives: increasing the synergy and the coherence, developing a learning environment, a knowledge base, establishing a sustainable system and governance for the platform, as I was saying, going beyond the time of specific project, and maintaining the link with the high-level policy dialogue between the European Union and the African Union, because what we do is really having the support of both unions and responding to the policy guidelines. In fact, the project LEAP for FNSSA is already working on some of the building blocks of the platform. The platform will launch in 2022, but some elements are already being produced. And I just want to give some example. The work package 1, which is here on the top, you can see it's really working with the HLPD Bureau, and it has just released recently a report on the resilience of food system in Europe and in Africa as a contribution for both continents to their participation to the UN food system that Francois Stefman was mentioning. And that report was discussed in an expert workshop with experts from both continents. Just an example. Another example is when we talk about creating synergies and coherence between actors in the specific objective 1, one of the work package. The work package 2 is definitely working on how to connect with actors and try to do it in a sort of downscale. It's a bi-continental platform, but how can we downscale to the specific regions in Africa and the specific regions in Europe? So at the moment, it's mostly working in North Africa and West Africa on how those different actors, stakeholders there, European stakeholders who are working in North Africa or West Africa, and stakeholders from North Africa and West Africa, how they can create synergies between them, how they can have a coherent vision on what they want to achieve. So that's a major achievement towards this specific objective, and that will feed the build-up of the IRC platform. And work package 3 here is really progressing a lot on the learning environment, how to provide information which is what we call tailor-made. It's not information that you find in everywhere. You stakeholders, I'm sure you have some specific questions, and sometimes it's difficult to get the right answers, get the right contacts with the right actors. So we have to develop some specific instruments. So the project is already working on this and will feed all this, the alliances of actors, the knowledge mechanisms, and the system to develop tailor-made informations, the dialogue with the Bureau, and the reflection on governance will all feed into the platform. I've said that that platform will start as being an international research consortium, and I just want to go very briefly on what is the international research consortium. I think it was mentioned, even with the example of what Patrick was saying about in what you did in Benin. What is it? It's a group of institutions who are committed to work together. This includes research and innovation institutions, but not only. They agree formally, and there is some sort of document where they agree, some sort of MOU. So it's institutions who commit, they agree together, they agree to work on the mid to long term. Here, that's the importance of not saying just a project for 3 years, but we want to go beyond this. There could be first stages, but has to be a long term. Go towards a goal which is commonly defined. In our case, it's the FNSSA roadmap, so that we know where we want to go. They have to work together on what is the governance mechanism they want to implement. And of course, we are talking not about a virtual platform. We're talking about an operational platform who does activity, deliver informations, facilitate meetings. So it's implementing. And of course, all this will require resources, and resources will come from the members of the platform, bringing in kind and in-cash resources, but also from the support that will come from outside. You may ask, why do we choose this IRC as the first model to start this platform? The first one is, as I insisted, the first element of the platform is the commitment of the founding institutions. If there's a strong commitment, then there will be long-term sustainability. FARA has been committed to the PAEPARD partnership and continues to be. So it's an example of how this commitment really creates sustainability. The other one is an IRC is an instrument which is welcomed by the European Commission, but is not very restrictive. You can work through it, you can adapt it. There are well-known examples that have been running for 5 years, 10 years, and are supported by external funders. So that's reassuring. The other element is that it's flexible, so you can build on what was done in the past, all the experience which has been gained, but it will also be able to evolve. As I said, the IRC may be the first model, first figure, but then it can move to something else if its members decide, and so on. It can have different way of governance, and it enables equal access to EU and non-EU institutions, which is key for us in our case of this EU and AU partnership. And I insisted here, it's also working not only on the research per se, but innovation as a process and not only as a sort of end product. And I want to insist on now because we are in this session on PAEPARD, when I talk about past experience, let me give a few examples. The first one is PAEPARD has developed a really strong communication strategy, and especially the D group. And many of you listening today are probably members of a D group of PAEPARD. In FNSSA, we are building on this experience and reutilizing the D group to feed the platform. That's building on the experience. The other one is all what was done by PAEPARD on the research mechanisms, the new funding mechanism for research, sorry. The work was on, I think the question of this incentive fund with a preparatory phase, with a stepwise approach is something that we are also trying to develop to push into the platform, because that is key. The other element that has been developed by PAEPARD is working with the private sector. And as you know, in most cases, the private sector, when private sector institution requires knowledge, it doesn't launch a call for proposal. It sort of goes, who knows this topic? How I can talk to somebody? How I can find my way through all this maze of institutions and then build little by little. And that's a mechanism which is the stepwise process that PAEPARD has been developing, which we really believe it's a winner in what we can do. It doesn't say that the competitive call should be stopped, but it's something that will be added to the landscape of funding instruments. So we're working on this. The other one is working on private investment beyond the sort of research scale to the scale of scaling up to the industry level. Maybe Patrice knows this example, but there is a nice example in Benin. Benin is a major producer of cashew nut, but for a long time, if you wanted to eat cashew nut in Benin, roasted and packaged in cities, then you would find easier to find them imported back from India than actually processed in Benin. So there is now one investor, the Moringa Fund, which is an investment fund, who is working with, who has developed in Benin the processing facility. So now in Benin, you can find cashew nut, roasted, salted, sold locally, but also sold to the, able to be exported to other countries instead of going with it to be shelled in India and coming back to be eaten in West Africa. So working with investment fund is also something that we want to bring into the platform in this landscape of funding opportunities. So I'd like to stop here, giving example of how we built on PAEPARD, but by getting one word of cautions, one difference. And PAEPARD is mostly funded by the aid program, the DigiDevCo. In the case of a platform that we want to launch, it is a partnership. It is a partnership between the two continents, which means that when we think about the user-led process, the user of the research and innovation developed under the platform should be both European and Africans. It's not only for users in Africa, it's also for users in Europe. So it means if we are able to develop this vision that those priorities are of common interest for Europe and Africa, then I'm sure that there will be also farmers from Europe thinking maybe differently and thinking, yes, it's interesting to go to work with those African farmers, with African institutions, because it's going to feed back also to my knowledge I need in Europe. There is an ongoing example, which is about the how to better manage and increase organic carbon in soil, large network, and it's actually feeding on examples from different continents, including Europe and Africa, with the involvement of farmers. If you have the time, there is a presentation from the project Soil for Africa. There's a session coming, so I will recommend that you go to that. So in the platform that we're building, we built a lot on the experience from PAEPARD, but we also see that there is some difference in what we do. Maybe we will try to do it, adapt the lesson learned from PAEPARD to our situation. Just to finish, a call for people who are listening. If you're interested, if you are in an institution who is looking to enhance your impact of what you do in research innovation, if you want to contribute to the FNSSA roadmap approved by the EU and the AU, if you are ready to mobilize resources to work with others, I'm not saying to bring your resources to pay somebody else, but use your resources to work in synergy with others, and you would agree to the work plan, the organization of the IRC, take part of these activities, then please let us know. It's time. We will be in the year to come finalizing the code design process of this platform that will be launched in 2022. So here are the contacts. Happy to have your questions. Let us know what you think and how your institution may be willing to contribute to this objective. Thank you. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Philip. Can I have some questions for Philip? If you want anything to be clarified, if you want to know more about what he's been talking about, please type your questions in the chat, then we'll ask him. So while I'm waiting for your questions, let me read some comments in the chat. I think they are from the earlier panel. Vesta says that PAEPARD, okay, I will not classify PAEPARD not funding industrial machines when the project was just about to end as a mistake, but rather an opportunity for PAEPARD project to rather upscale and look for either PPP, public-private partnerships, or other funding opportunities to continue or expand the project. The lesson learned will be for projects to consider seriously sustainability, existing strategies, mainstreaming, upscaling, great business opportunities during project implementation. The innovation to impact, which leads to business, to business and involvement of private sector is very critical in such innovative projects. So what Vista is saying, that actually it's not that PAEPARD could not fund industrial machines, but the request came rather towards the close of the funding. Okay, so Philip, there is a question for you. How will the IRC ensure balance and equity between Africa and European partners?
In fact,
so please keep the questions coming while Philip answers this one. Yes, Philip.
Yes, I think that's one of the principles. I use the shorter presentation here, but in what the partners have discussed, we work around 9 principles for defining this platform, and one is the balanced partnership. It will have to be fed into the governance mechanism of the platform. For instance, there are some IRC who are based on stakeholder constituencies, and we could imagine that there would be, if we work on stakeholder constituencies, there should be one apex organization for farmers organization in Europe, working with one apex organization representing farmer organization from Africa. That would be balanced. It would not work if we have 20 organizations on one side and just one on the other side. So we have to think into the governance mechanism to ensure that this is balanced in the decision-making process, in feeding the views in the whole discussion. So that's one of the principles, and I think, Accra, you are very right to highlight this point, because it's a key element. How to, beyond what I've just said about these principles and defining the governance for this, it will also depend very much on the engagement of each institutions. You know, if some institutions are engaged but are silent, are not pushing, are not bringing their energy into it, that could create a sort of displacement and imbalance. So I think we need to be also careful about facilitating language, I think it's very good, and I commend you for organizing this event in both French and English, because we know that for some stakeholders, expressing in English is difficult. We should think also about our Lusophone partners from Africa, so they can join. I know a lot of them speak also English or French, but I think that would be good. So facilitating so that they get involved would be also a way to ensure that it stays balanced.
Yes, yes, thank you very much. And now we have exactly 4 minutes to closing this session. So I was going to share something with you, but I think I'll keep it for another time. But essentially, when we are talking networks, we are talking partnerships. People engage in these kinds of networks for what they can get out. But also for the okay, let me put my video so that you see me. For these networks to add value, you must invest. So there is the investment that you make, and that's what this new platform is about. This new platform is saying, if you must be a partner, you also have to contribute. So the value that you get out of that partnership is also related to how much you are willing to invest. It may not be that you will have a lot of money to put aside, but the ideas, the things that you bring on the platform is what is really what makes the partnership strong. And from the presentations we've had from Steve and from Patrice, you could see the importance of what the different partners were bringing on board. And it's that mutual benefit, mutual effort that we put in that makes these networks sustainable. So again, I'll hand over to Jonas for you to call okay, Jonas, I will invite you to invite the person from FARA. I'm looking to see if Agri is still around to come and close this meeting. We have 2 minutes left.
Thank you very much.
Agri, you're there. Sorry,
yes.
Agri, I was looking for you. I couldn't see you. So please, you opened. Now you can close us.
Yes. Thank you very much, Monica. It is always refreshing to have you facilitating these meetings. We have shared extensively on the lessons from PAEPARD and how they may apply to the new consortium that is being and thank you very much, Philippe, for enlightening us and responding to our questions, and we're thankful. I think we have had a very good discussion. I want to acknowledge also Francois, Steve, Patrice for the panel discussion that we have had, very enlightening. And I think we have now some better understanding of how we can leverage on the lessons from PAEPARD into the next phase of Leap for FNSSA. I encourage you, let us remain connected as we move along. Let us remain engaged in understanding how the Leap for FNSSA would transition into this consortium, so that we continue to be part of this exciting journey that we are taking together. On that note, colleagues, it is my pleasure and my honor to close this exciting session. Thank you very much. Over to you, Monica.
All right, thank you very much. I don't know whether it's okay, Philip, for you to share some of the slides that you presented. We want to add what you said to be part of the report, yes. And we'll also ask FARA to take note of what was in the chat and also the recording, because the session was being recorded to facilitate us. So thanks, Phil. Thank you, everybody, for being part of this meeting. If we were talking to each other, to ourselves as the facilitators and the panelists and the presenters, it wouldn't have been as interesting. So we thank you very much, and keep looking out for PAEPARD, and we all know that we are going to listen for this new platform that is coming. Now, before everybody goes off, just type your name and your organization in the chat. And if you have any advice for this new platform that is coming on, just type that as well. So as we say bye, please type something in the chat, and we call it a day. Thank you. And
also, Monica, one picture, group photo.
Oh, yes. Please, yes. Open your camera. Your camera so that we have a picture, please.
Is it done, Ben?
Ben, you tell us when you finish so that we stop smiling.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay, so just write something in the chat.
Yes, I'm
it
done
was
now.
a great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And you can keep smiling.
Okay. So let me read. Okay, let me read as the things come in and people are leaving, but we can read some of what is coming in the chat. Yeah. So Abraham Asante said, okay, this one says thank you. Myra says thank you for the session. It's interesting to see the evolution of these different platforms throughout the years. Abraham says, okay, then there's a link there. We have someone from CSR Ghana. Karen says, okay, gender expert. So you people are not giving us any comments, eh? All right, but we've had all these people in. We've had Jessica from Makerere University, Asawade, who has been a presenter. We've had Isaac Ann from the Chinese Academy of Agriculture. Abraham, you're from Kenya. We have had Kasankara from Tanzania. Yes. Yeah. So thank you very much. Yes, there is Jose from Agronomy Institute of Lisbon, Portugal. You're welcome. Helen Gomez from CSIC. We have Hugh from University of Paran. Oh, okay, that one has disappeared. We have Emil. Thank you very much. Okay, so Karen says the new platform should consider strong linkages with private sector with an emphasis on connecting stakeholders to co-creating new knowledge and strengthening capacity to collaborate and market access. Thank you very much. Faith from Zambia, you're welcome. Barbara so says, please find information on all sessions. Okay, so you can find information on all sessions on that link. Then we have Faith from Zimbabwe, you're welcome. Okay, and so many others. So you can leave as you see the session is officially ended.